this is a 2-in-1 story time. So you guys better stick around for 2 stories. Because to wait anymore, I'm back with another story time right now. And this one, we're gonna call this story time Bound by Blood, Haunted by Spirits, My Family's Chilling Story. Let's get into it. This person didn't tell me their at or anything like that, so I'm assuming that they would like to remain anonymous. So just for the sake of the story, this is about 2 sisters. We're gonna call sister number 1, inspired by my cat, Coco, and sister number 2, Midnight. So Midnight and Coco, I'm naming them after my cats. Okay, so let's get into the story time. Both of the girls, so both sisters grew up in a Orisha/spiritual Baptist home. So they were both used to seeing and hearing certain things and also even dreaming about certain things. But it was never anything out of the ordinary. But y'all, this specific experience would scare both of the girls to the core, so much so that Midnight till this day does not talk about this situation. Let's get into the story time. At the time, Coco's sister was pregnant. So Midnight was pregnant. So Midnight at the time was 18 years old and Coco was 20. Coco 20, Midnight 18. Coco and Midnight both lived in this family yard, meaning that they lived in a yard that was shared by the family. And they had this uncle. For some reason, it's always the uncle, but she had this uncle. Both of them had this uncle. And they both kind of knew or suspected that the uncle was involved in some dark stuff, but they never had any evidence and they never had anything to back it up. So they just kept their suspicions at bay and they would just move on with their lives, knowing that the uncle was involved in dark arts. The girls even had dreams about the uncle, but then again, like I said, they were young, so there was nothing they could do about it. At the time that the story takes place, we'll say that Midnight was about 6 or 7 months pregnant. So keep in mind, at the time, Midnight and Coco usually slept together in the same bed. Even though they had a bunk bed, Midnight used to feel more comfortable sleeping with Coco at the bottom bunk. But this particular night, for some reason, Midnight decided that she wanted to sleep on the top bunk. So that night, it was regular. The girls talked. Midnight went up to the top bunk and Coco stayed at the bottom bunk. And the girls, like I said, before they both went to bed, it was pretty normal. They were both laughing. They were both talking. They hugged each other. Good night. Midnight went to sleep and Coco went to sleep. When suddenly everyone was awakened by Midnight screaming in the middle of the night. She wasn't sure what time it was, but everyone was awakened by her screams. So Coco jumped off the bed to see what was going on with her sister and why she was screaming. And just for her to see her sister literally jumping off from the top bunk, mind you, Midnight is pregnant. Midnight is jumping off from the top bunk onto the bottom bunk, ran straight to her mother's room. And of course, obviously, Coco would follow after Midnight. Midnight couldn't speak right away, so she just ran to the mother's room and she's just hysterical. She couldn't say what was going on with her, and everybody's just trying to figure out, why did you scream? What is going on? What's up with you? So after some time, they managed to calm Midnight down, and Midnight was able to tell them exactly what was going on with her. Midnight said that when she fell asleep, she had a dream that she saw her uncle's face very vividly, the same uncle that they suspected to be involved in dark arts. She saw her uncle's face and hands very vividly on the ceiling, just coming down, reaching into her stomach to grab her unborn baby. And Midnight said that it felt so real. It is as though Midnight is laying on her back and she is looking up at the ceiling and she is seeing, not knowing whether she fell asleep or not, and she's looking up and she is seeing her uncle's face and her uncle's hands emerge from the ceiling, grabbing down and reaching to touch her belly. And she also mentioned seeing a sinister look and a grin on the uncle's face, looking down at her. So right before the uncle goes to touch her belly, that is when Midnight would suddenly jump out of her sleep and literally scream from the top of her lungs, which was what the scream that Coco was hearing. scream, jump up from her sleep, literally jump up from the top bunk to the bottom to run to her room. And when, like I mentioned earlier, she couldn't speak when she got to the room, so everybody was frazzled, everybody was confused, wondering what is going on. So then when she finally caught her breath, she explained exactly what I just explained to you guys. So everybody being in a state of panic, because Midnight was saying that this feels so real, it's not like she was describing it as a dream, it felt real. So everybody ran around the house looking to see if there were any doors that were left unlocked, and they would see that every single door in the house was actually locked. They turned on the lights in their room and there was no one. After Coco and Midnight's mother heard about what Midnight just went through, and everybody just scavenged the house to see if anybody just entered the house to see if anything weird was going on, and they found nothing, their mother decided that she was going to call their grandmother, who is the mother's mother. So she called the grandmother, and her grandmother instantly left her home and made their way to their house with another one of their uncles who did cleansing work. So they came to the house, and the uncle gave Midnight an amulet. So it's basically like a guard to protect her and to keep her safe moving forward in her pregnancy and her baby. So then the following day, the girls woke up like, what a crazy, traumatizing night. So the girls make their way outside to catch some fresh air, and there is the uncle sitting out there acting like nothing ever happened. To him, he was out there enjoying the nature, enjoying a regular day. He didn't address anything. It was as though nothing ever happened the night before. Her mother and her sister winded up moving out of the house because they just couldn't stand to live there anymore. They were too scared. So even though Midnight wore her amulet, her guard, the thing that was there to keep her safe, Midnight would account to still feeling and seeing stuff and spirits and things from a distance watching her. Those strange things would just come at any point and any time and just watch her. Midnight never went back until she had her baby. And even till this day, she only goes back for family gatherings. Well, that one was a scary one. That was creepy. Since this one was a short story, this is a 2-in-1 story time. So you guys better stick around for 2 stories. Let's get into the second one. Since you guys really enjoyed the last love spell story, well, I have another one. It's just short, so I'm just putting them both together. So we'll call this girl Natasha, and we'll call this guy Jacob, okay? Natasha and Jacob were in a relationship together. And Natasha said their relationship were going pretty fine. Like, they had a pretty normal relationship up until she recalls meeting their parents. So one day, Jacob came up to Natasha and said, hey babe, like, we're getting pretty serious. We should go and meet my parents. So Natasha and Jacob would go make those plans and then follow up with those plans and go and meet their parents around Thanksgiving. So Natasha recalls Jacob's parents to be very, kind of like investigators. Like, they would ask her a lot of deep personal questions, like, what do you do for a living? Where's your family from? Who are you? And just ask her all types of questions. And it just kind of seems like Natasha could never judge whether they approve or disapprove of her answers. Natasha felt really uneasy about that, so she went and spoke to Jacob about why she felt uneasy during the parents' meeting. And Jacob would ease her mind and tell her, no, my parents are just really just skeptical people, so I wouldn't really worry about them at all. Natasha being like, oh, okay, it's kind of hard, but okay, cool, I hear you. What happens if neither of you guys do a love spell on each other, but the family does? We're about to find out. Natasha continues her relationship with Jacob and starts to fall deeply in love with Jacob. She was deeply in love with him. She couldn't identify exactly when she fell in love with him, but she just knew that Jacob was her man, and she was not willing to leave that man at all. Again, could not identify when this happened, but it did. So Natasha found herself building and developing new character traits, new habits, like being jealous, like being possessive. So every time she would see Jacob doing anything, she would get extremely jealous or she would get extremely possessive. So part of her would work up her ego anytime these things would happen, and Natasha would always manage to calm herself down and not cause a scene. Until one time, she went out to the grocery store with Jacob and she saw this girl specifically touch his shoulder, and she couldn't say what it was, but Natasha would just have this big, disgusting blowout in the grocery store with Jacob and with this girl. So when they went home, Jacob would scream at Natasha like, why would you do this? It was so friendly. It was so innocent. I just do not understand where you're coming from or what would trigger this. Natasha being very just confused by her behavior, would just be like, I don't know why I would act like this. I'll work on my anger moving forward. So they continued being in their relationship, and Natasha continued working on herself. But then Natasha here and there would just continuously get angry at like the smallest things that Jacob would do. And she also found herself not getting along at all with any of Jacob's family. So the next family gathering that Natasha went to, she found herself fighting and like just literally arguing, 1 with Jacob's sister, 2 with Jacob's cousin, and 3 with Jacob's mother. So there's 3 different people in the family that Natasha, poor Natasha, is having issues with. And all 3 of those people were very important parts of his life, of Jacob's life. What is going on? It literally feels like none of his family members like me, none of the ones that count. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not, like, Natasha wasn't trying to do anything to anger anyone, so she's just genuinely confused and wondering, where the fuck is this coming from? Boom. Natasha went to sleep and she had a dream. And in her dream, she saw somebody walk up to her and slap her in the face. Then she saw another person walk up to her and slap her on the other side of her face. And then she saw somebody walk up to her and push her. And the time that they pushed her, she fell to the ground. And when she fell to the ground, she looked up and she notices that Jacob's mother was standing above her. And she's in the dream and she's looking up at Jacob's mother, wondering, what are you doing above me? And mind you, she couldn't tell the first 3 people that slapped her in the face and the one that pushed her down, because all of their faces were black in the dream. The only face that she was able to account for was Jacob's mother when she looked up while she was already on the floor. So she looked up and she saw Jacob's mother and she said, what are you doing? What's going on? So Natasha would get up from the floor, and as she tries to get up, his mother would try to push her back down to the floor, and she would succeed. Natasha would fall again. So she would get up, and her and Jacob's mother would start to fight. Jacob's mother managed to pin her to the ground and choke her. So Natasha is screaming and crying, hoping that somebody will save her. And Jacob's mother said, nobody is coming to save you. You are under my hand and you are under my will. So Natasha woke up from that dream, and automatically she knew that somebody was working witchcraft on her. And she also automatically knew who that somebody was, and that it was indeed Jacob's mother. She wasn't going to confront Jacob's mother because Natasha does not do voodoo. She wasn't going to do anything. So Natasha just one day woke up as she wanted to build an escape plan. So she hooked up with some of her friends. They all came to get her. So Natasha went to somebody who does obia, and basically she asked them to do a soul cord cutting, which is where they lit 2 candles and they attach the candles in the middle. I don't know if you guys ever seen those videos, but there's 2 different candles and they attach a string in the middle and they light both of them, and they basically let the candles burn out until that little string connecting both candles together eventually breaks. So she went to somebody who practices the obia, and they did not only an egg cleansing on her, but also a candle soul tie breaking spell. And that is how she said, although it was very hard and she still suffered from a lot of trauma, she was able to successfully get away from Jacob and Jacob's family. She doesn't know why Jacob's mother would do obia on her, or why Jacob's mother would do this to her, but she was sure that it was exactly who harmed her. Okay, so if you guys enjoyed these 2 stories, please make sure you subscribe to my story times. And if you guys watch all the way this way, like, I appreciate you so much, because like you guys are contributing to my watch hours and it's helping me get that much closer to being monetized. I love you guys so much. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys. Thank you, Abducted. If you guys want more of these spooky, creepy story times that are so mysterious and so dark, that has to do with obia or voodoo, whatever you want to call it, African spirituality, I got all of them. I get submitted stories and real life experiences. I also tell ghost stories, lugau stories, love spells, whatever it is, your girl got you. So, if I didn't say this already, I know I did. Make sure you subscribe, and just so I know it's real, make sure you follow me on Instagram. It is the exact same thing, Rebecca Journey on Instagram, and also on TikTok. So without further ado, I'm running out of storage space. I love you. Bye.